I was going to say, when it comes to the bureaucrats and this massive government, the empire does tend to strike back when you start changing things. Not sure if you'd agree with that, but when you start saying, "Look, we're going to cut this, we're going to cut that, we're going to restructure this," there is a sense of they're very active in getting on the street. And I think who was it in Campbell Newman in Queensland tried to cut a lot of the public service. Yeah. They ended up throwing him out basically after a one term.
Yeah, look, he cut too hard too quickly. I think he was probably right in what he was trying to do, but you're going to run up against hurdles all the way, and the bureaucracy is very good at fortifying itself. That's what they do. They fortify themselves, and we have to be aware of that. And just as I say, politicians need to have limited lifetime, I think bureaucrats probably do as well. I mean, I think having a career in government service, we need to think about that. Just as we have people in a career in defence. Why? It leads to some bad outcomes, I think. Lack of commercial experience, business acumen, reality. You talk about the Canberra bubble. And do they listen to what the people say? Do people write to the bureaucrats, or they write to the minister, the parliament? Should the bureaucrats be more on display? About the recommendations. We've got this great debate about superannuation at present, and
yes, I mean,
it's right in my alley because my clients, self-directed retirees, the overall majority aren't affected. Let's be real.
Yeah,
but I can tell you, the majority of my clients with a few million in super would not contest a reasonable tax on excessive benefits in super. I think that's most Australians would agree with that. But when you get a bureaucracy who comes out with some unrealised capital gains tax and then say it won't affect many people, and what are you all getting upset by? And you go, well, if it's not going to affect many people and not raise much money, why are you doing it? And there's a very sinister reason why they're doing it this way, is because there is a layer of the bureaucracy who have got very significant retirement benefits, which are kept away from the public. They're not disclosed. There's at least a dozen politicians. There would be dozens and dozens of bureaucrats who are looking at lifetime pensions. Some were contributed to, some weren't. It's a mystery. No one asks. No one wants to know. I've written lots of articles on it. Is it bad? It has to be bad. I'll tell you why it has to be bad. You go back to when we set up the Future Fund, which was to meet the unfunded liabilities. An actuary said, in 2006, 140 billion, by 2020, done. No problem. Here we are today, and we have 240 billion in the Future Fund. It still hasn't paid a pension. The latest estimate of the liability is north of $300 billion. So something's rotten, okay? Now, the exponential growth in the liability suggests there are some people who are getting hideously high benefits. Now, I know you are on about the press. The press doesn't ask. The parliament doesn't ask. There's lots of inquiries into superannuation in the Senate.
This is a huge scandal.
Well, it's a scandal. I don't want to liken it to Epstein, but I mean, when something is in front of your face and no one wants to ask the question and no one wants to answer it. Now, I'll give you an example, and I don't want to mention names, but you'll work it out. I mean, I went through the asset disclosures of politicians, which you have to do at every... And I can't find one politician who's disclosed they've got a defined benefit.
If I can just take 20 seconds of your time, I apologise for interrupting this clip. If you'd like to support Turning Point Australia and what we're doing to help keep the lights on and keep the work going moving forward, please check out our website at tpaust.com.au. We've got a range of merchandise, whether it's the Make Australia Great Again hat, whether it's the other shirts that we have, or the educational maps that we have. Please go and support. If you don't want to buy any merch, that's fine. You can also support us by buying us a coffee and becoming a regular subscriber for as little as $4 a month. I'll let you guys get back to it. Thank you so much.
Now, is that an asset that should be disclosed? There are politicians on both sides of the House who have got 4, 5 and 6 investment properties. They have to disclose that, whether it's in their name or their spouse. But defined benefits are not disclosed. Now, if I went into a bank and wanted to borrow money and I was 55 and a politician and I was getting a lifetime pension, I'm sure I'd put it on my asset register and explain to a bank why they should lend me money against that known cash flow, which is government guaranteed and indexed. That gives me tremendous gearing capacity. So the ability to create wealth. But that's not in a disclosure on the public domain, in a public document by politicians. And why?
Because it's covered by employment law, isn't
I
it?
don't know. Well, I don't care what laws. You know,
It should be
but
public.
who's protecting who in the zoo?
It's the taxpayer.
Well, the taxpayer is paying somewhere, and again, if you went to the budget papers, you'd struggle to find the numbers, but it's somewhere, let's call it 15 billion, which taxpayers are paying every year, going to pay pensions under defined benefit schemes,
Right.
which the future fund's not paying. Now, if we're running a 40 billion deficit this year, if that's the number, well, I can knock 15 billion off it pretty quickly by getting the future fund to pay its own pensions. And if the future fund paid its own pensions, guess what it would have to do? It would have to change its asset mix and it would have to invest more in Australian income. And we'd get a reset of that fund, which is claimed to be the future fund. Well, it's no one's future other than the beneficiaries of that fund. It's not Australia's national fund. So there's a scandal goes on and, in front of our eyes. And it doesn't matter how many times I write about it, how many times, and people will say, well, John, you might be wrong. That's why no one wants wrong with it. Nah, there are great cover-ups in this country. And hats off to you. Let's talk about them, expose them. I mean, I think I read in the last few days that the Freedom of Information Act, they want to change. They want to stall that.
I believe so.
You go, well,
Yeah.
why? What is being hidden? I read the other day and, I'm getting old. There's so much information. I mean,
Yeah.
we had a disaster in Queensland, the helicopter crash. There's liability in terms of employment liability, but we can't see why that's the conclusion. It's been kept secret. It's like, why? So how can someone make a judgment that there is a liability under employment law, but the reasoning for that can't be made public, even though it's a government payout that'll be of taxpayers' money? So these are strange things. And I think there is agreement in Parliament at a certain level where certain things aren't asked, certain things aren't questioned, certain information doesn't flow. And that's hideous. That's why you need to turn over the Parliament and don't have these people sitting there for decades because they're actually doing a disservice in terms of information flow. Young people would come in and say, no, that's unacceptable, give me the answer. Old people say, no, it's always been that way. It's comfortable. We don't ask them. And they don't ask us because, I'll be the government one day and I'll be the opposition. It seems to be like
It is like that. One hand washes the other.
that's right. And it's unacceptable, So I'm all for change,
Yeah.
but let's acknowledge there's some problems.
This will get some views.
Will it?
Yeah, this will get some views. I've done a lot of interviews. This is almost episode 50 of the Arc. This is 49, but I've been doing this for a few years, and I'm like, no, this is big. There's going to be a lot of people that write about this. I think it's a very big deal.
Right.
Thank you so much for watching the show. I hope you enjoyed this particular clip. If you want to support this show and keep the lights on and support everything we're doing at Turning Point Australia, please head to tpaust.com.au where we've got hats, we've got shirts, we've got maps. And if you don't want to buy any merch, that's perfectly fine. If you want to just buy maybe a cup of coffee a month, for as little as $4 a month, you can help us get a small, long black to actually support the show and actually keep things going. Thank you guys so much for your support. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you later.